Everyone, welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. Pleasure to be in your company, right here in the live studios in Hythe, Kent, Southeast England, just near the English Channel, called The Haven. We renamed it The Haven, but I think I've said it many times that in Anglo-Saxon, the word Hythe means haven. So here we are in the haven. For all of your information, I'm getting a taste of what it means to do the marathon that we're going to have to go through to get this book done before Gaur Purnim, and a little before so that it can be prepared and released by Gaur Purnima. It's going to be a big challenge. It's 120 hours of listening. So just to listen to it without doing anything, it takes a month. But all the things that have to be done to make it as perfect as possible means I have to give 6 hours a day in addition to the other things that I do. So I need the blessings, frankly. I need the blessings of the Vaishnavas. So please give me your blessings so that I can accomplish this great task. And then after that, there's going to be the Bhagavatam, the whole Bhagavatam, and the Krishna book, and the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita, and hopefully the Brhad Bhagavatamrta to be made into a BBT, official BBT audiobook. I did this before, but one of the volumes was lost by mistake. Hare Krishna. So I think I'll do it again. Anyway, here we are, ready to hear another chapter, another installment of the Brhad Bhagavatamrta, which is just, as you can already fathom, maybe it's fathomless, but it's very wonderful. So before we read, we'll chant the Srimad Bhagavata Mahima Stotram, which was composed by Srila Sanatana Goswami for his book, Sri Krishna Lila Stava. It's 5 verses, and it's the 412th through 416th verses of the Sri Krishna Lila Stava. It's glorifying the Bhagavatam, and we read it every day because the Brhad Bhagavatamrta is based on the Srimad Bhagavatam. It is the essence of the knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam. So this Srimad Bhagavata Mahima Stotram goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarvalokaika Drik Prada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana, Srimad Bhagavata Prabho, Kalidwandodita Ditya, Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master, Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya, Prema Varshakshadaya Te, Sarvada Sarvasevyaya, Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin, Madguro Man Mahadana, Manistadagamad Bhagya, Madanandanamostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu saduta dayin atini chochata kada hanamun chagadachin mam premna rit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we reached the third chapter of the first part of Sri Brhad Bhagavatamrta. Narada Muni is continuing his journey to all parts of the spiritual and material and spiritual worlds, looking for the devotee who has received the most mercy from Krishna. He's now with Lord Shiva, and we're hearing now Lord Shiva glorifying the residents of Vaikuntha, who he considers to be superior to him. That is the plot of the first part of the Brhad Bhagavatamrta. Narada Muni goes to a devotee, glorifies him as the best devotee. The devotee refutes Narada's praise and then redirects the praise to a devotee that devotee considers to be higher or a better devotee. So here's Lord Shiva finishing his glorification of the Vaikuntha Vasis. We're beginning with text 61. Having drunk the nectar of devotion to Krishna, those devotees forget their material bodies and relationships. Thus, even while living in material bodies, they assume the transcendental nature of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. Commentary. One might question how devotees living on earth and in Vaikuntha can be equal. Don't the residents of earth have bodies made of material energy, while the residents of Vaikuntha have transcendental bodies? But Lord Shiva confirms the equality of these devotees nonetheless. Vaishnavas pay little attention to their gross and subtle material bodies and to the bodily relationships. Vaishnavas do not consider the body their own property, and so are indifferent in this regard. Having overcome the obstacles of bodily attachment, the devotees living in the material world enjoy the nectar of prema bhakti without distraction and are therefore equal to the residents of Vaikuntha. Even while living in material bodies, the Vaishnavas lead an existence that is completely spiritual, Satchit Ananda. A devotee's material body may literally transform into a spiritual one, like the body of Dhruva Maharaj just before his ascent to Vaikuntha. As described by Maitreya Rishi, before getting aboard the Vaikuntha airplane, Dhruva Maharaj worshipped and circumambulated it, and also offered obeisances to the associates of Vishnu. In the meantime, he became as brilliant and illuminating as molten gold. He was thus completely prepared to board the transcendental plane. Bhagavatam 4:12-29. Commenting on this verse, Srila Sridhar Swami explains, Hiranmayam is as meaning, Srila Sridhar Swami explains Hiranmayam as meaning full of effulgence. In other words, Dhruva Maharaj obtained a new body made of pure spiritual energy. To thus obtain a better body is quite possible. Srila Sanatana Goswami mentions that even drinking a special herbal tonic can give one a more attractive material body, then what to speak of the attractive form one can attain by always drinking the transcendental tonic of bhakti rasa. 62. But in Vaikuntha, devotees always relish ongoing pleasure pastimes in the very company of the Lord. Therefore, devotees sometimes prefer to live there. Commentary. Why single out Vaikuntha and its residents for praise if devotees of Vishnu on the earth are equally glorious? Because although the pure Vaishnavas reveal on earth the glories of devotional service, only in Vaikuntha do the devotees enjoy the company of the goddess of the husband, of the goddess of fortune, in endless varieties of ecstatic pastimes. These loving reciprocations appear in Vaikuntha and nowhere else. For that reason, Vaikuntha has received its name. It is the world where no one ever feels the anxiety, kuntata, of not tasting the perpetual flow of devotional rasa. When the personality of Godhead momentarily disappears from the external or internal sight of his devotees in Vaikuntha, his disappearance only increases their eagerness to see him and be with him. In Vaikuntha, even the Lord's absence increases his devotees' awareness of him and their enjoyment of rasa. Text 63. That is why I say that the residents of Vaikuntha are greater than everyone else. As the objects of Krishna's special mercy, they are his most beloved devotees. Commentary. The Vaikuntha-vasis are greater than liberated Vaishnavas in the material world, among whom Lord Shiva counts himself. The reason for their various manifest glories, Lord Shiva argues, must be Lord Vishnu's favoring them more than others. They must be his dearest servants. Text 64. Sri Parvati said, furthermore, among them all, the goddess Shri is famous as especially dear to the Lord. She is indeed the ruling goddess of Vaikuntha and its residents. Commentary. Lord Shiva's consort, Devi, is a partial expansion of Lord Vishnu's consort, Shri. When Parvati heard her husband praise Vaikuntha without mentioning the Queen of Vaikuntha, Parvati became somewhat disturbed. She therefore took the liberty to speak out. Everyone who knows the goddess Shri knows that she is the beloved wife of Lord Vishnu. Indeed, one of her names is Hari Priya. She is worshipped with reverence by all the Vaikuntha Vasis. To uphold the claim that Lord Vishnu's consort Shri is his most favored devotee, Parvati will now describe her greatness in more detail. Text 65. Her mercy expands wherever she casts her sidelong glance. Thus the rulers of the various planets obtain their powers, their knowledge, their detachment, and their devotion. Commentary. According to Mother Parvati, the demigods are powerful only by the blessings of the goddess Shri. It is thanks to Shri that the demigods correctly understand the relative positions of God and the finite living entities, that they have given up interest in material enjoyment and liberation, and that they have become devotees of the personality of Godhead. As Durvasa Muni told Indra in the Vishnu Purana 1.9.29, where there is patience, opulence arises, and patience also follows opulence. But how can those not favored by the goddess Shri have patience? And without patience, how can they have good qualities? In the same chapter of the Vishnu Purana, 1.9.120, Lord Indra offered the following prayer to Lakshmi. O resplendent goddess, you personify the mystic knowledge of sacrifice, of material nature, of the secrets of devotional service, and of perfection for the soul. You are the giver of ultimate liberation. Ultimate liberation is pure devotional service, which is ruled by the consort of the Supreme Person and gained by a fortunate soul only when she recommends that soul to the Lord. Text 66. Ignoring people like you who worship her with great respect, she vowed to undergo severe penances to worship her beloved Lord, even though he was indifferent to her. Commentary. Only devotional service to the Supreme Lord can attract the attention of the goddess Lakshmi, who worships Lord Narayana with pure devotion. She willingly accepts any difficulty and any menial service to please him, although he, being satisfied in himself, does not need anyone's help to fulfill his desires. Many Vaishnavas look to Mother Lakshmi's example of perfect surrender, hoping to follow in her footsteps. The wives of the Kaliya snake, for example, prayed to Sri Krishna, O Lord, we do not know how the serpent Kaliya has attained this great opportunity of being touched by the dust of your lotus feet. For this end, the goddess of fortune performed austerities for centuries, giving up all other desires and taking austere vows. Bhagavatam 10:16-36. The Supreme Goddess Mahalakshmi is the eternal beloved of the Lord of Vaikuntha. She does not have to worship him to achieve him, but her expansions descend as avatars to accompany the various incarnations of Narayana. And some of these avatars of Mahalakshmi, such as the daughter of Bhrigu Muni, are described in Vedic scriptures as performing penances to obtain the Lord as their husband. Text 67. This most beautiful of chaste wives resides forever on his beautiful chest and follows him in all his incarnations. Commentary. One of Sri Mahalakshmi's expansions is the Lakshmi who controls and dispenses the opulences of this material world. Those who seek this Lakshmi's grace know from their experience that she is fickle, chanchala. But the original Lakshmi is never unsteady in her devotion to Lord Narayana. She always stays in his company, residing on his chest and following wherever he goes. Just as the Lord of the universe, the God of gods, Janardhan, descends to this world, so does his helpmate, the goddess Shri. When he appears as a demigod, she appears as a goddess. And when he becomes a human man, she becomes a human woman. She accepts for herself a body that exactly corresponds to whatever body Lord Vishnu assumes. Vishnu Purana 1.9.142 and 145. Text 168. Shri Parikshit said, Then the sage, his mind vibrating with extreme delight, called out, Glories to you, O husband of the goddess Kamala, O Hari, Lord of Vaikuntha. Glories to you, O Vaikuntha world. Glories to all who live there. And glories to you, O Padma, Lord Krishna's beloved, O presiding goddess of Vaikuntha. Commentary. Having heard Lord Shiva and Parvati's description of the glories of Vaikuntha, its residents and its presiding goddess, Narada was overwhelmed with ecstasy. Although the Supreme Person was currently present on earth in Dwaraka, Narada forgot this and wanted to go at once to Vaikuntha. Expressing his ecstasy, he first praised Lord Narayana, then his kingdom and its residents, and last, the greatest devotee of Vaikuntha, Sri Mahalakshmi. Text 70. Then, wanting to visit Vaikuntha and personally offer respects to the goddess of fortune, Narada stood up. Seeing this, Lord Shiva took him by the hand to stop him. Lord Shiva then spoke. Commentary. From the words Narada was speaking and from how he turned his eyes upward, Lord Shiva could understand that Narada intended to visit Vaikuntha and personally offer his respects to the goddess Mahalakshmi. But by doing this, Narada would neglect an even better opportunity. Text 71. Lord Mahesh said, "My dear Narada, because of your eagerness to see the dearmost devotees of Krishna, you have lost your memory. Don't you remember that the Lord of Vaikuntha is living right now on earth in Dwaraka?" Commentary. Narada is not to be blamed for being distracted by the glories of the Lord of Vaikuntha and his consort, because Narayana and Mahalakshmi are indeed the all-attractive supreme couple. But Narada could now see the same Narayana and Mahalakshmi without having to travel so far. Queen Rukmini is the supreme goddess of fortune herself, and Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. Rukmini's partial incarnations accompany Lord Vamana and the other avatars of the Lord. Commentary. In case Narada has any doubt that the goddess Mahalakshmi is appearing with Sri Krishna, Lord Shiva reminds Narada that she has descended as the daughter of King Bhishmaka. Still, Narada might raise the doubt that Sri Mahalakshmi never leaves the side of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana. Lord Shiva answers this by quoting the assertion given in the Bhagavatam 1.3.28, Krishna's tu, Bhagavan, Swayam. Krishna, as he appears on earth, is that original personality of Godhead. But why then is Lakshmi sometimes seen in the company of incarnations of the Lord, such as Sri Vamana, the thousand-headed Mahapurusha, and Kapiladev? Because these Lakshmis are avatars of Mahalakshmi. That original goddess of fortune, the dearest devotee of the Lord of Vaikuntha, has descended to Dwarka as Queen Rukmini. Text 73. Rukmini is the perfectly complete divine consort of the complete personality of Godhead. She always serves at Sri Krishna's lotus feet. Commentary. Because Sri Krishna is not a mere incarnation of Vishnu, but the source of all incarnations, Srimati Rukmini is equally supreme. She is the source of all goddesses of fortune. Text 74. So sit down, my dear Brahmana, and I shall whisper in your ear a great secret. Please hear this with absolute confidence. Commentary. Since the original personality of Godhead and his original consort have appeared on earth, Narada should put aside his eagerness to run off to Vaikuntha and should just sit for a minute to hear what more Lord Shiva has to say. Nor should Narada run immediately to Dwarka without first listening to Lord Shiva's confidential advice. Because what Lord Shiva wishes to say should not be heard by everyone, not even by his personal associates, he wants to whisper it into Narada's ear, thus also avoiding the possibility of displeasing Parvati, who is a close friend of Mahalakshmi's. Text 75. There is a greater recipient of Krishna's mercy than your father, me, and other servants like Garuda, and even than the goddess of fortune. His name is Prahlad. He is famous throughout the world as the dearmost devotee of Krishna. Commentary. Do not expect to fulfill your intentions by visiting Dwarka just now. Lord Shiva is telling Narada, there is a devotee in this world even greater than the supreme goddess of fortune, and that is Prahlad. Before going anywhere else, you should visit him. Because Prahlad's devotion to the Supreme Lord is so deep, he is exceptionally dear to the Lord. He is greater than all the Lord's servants in Vaikuntha, including Garuda and Vishwaksena, and even Lakshmi. Text 76. Surely you haven't forgotten the Supreme Lord's words about this? You must have read them in the Puranas and must remember the following verse. Without saintly persons, for whom I am the only destination, I do not desire to enjoy my transcendental bliss or my supreme opulences. Commentary. This verse, spoken by the Supreme Lord to Durvasa Muni in the 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 9.4.64, is cited here to establish the greatness of the Vaishnavas in general. The personality of Godhead derives great satisfaction from his pure devotees on the earth and elsewhere, and in contrast, he is not as much attracted to his own consort in Vaikuntha or the imperishable opulences she creates for his pleasure, nor is he much attracted by his own beauty. As the Lord further told Durvasa, I am completely under the control of my devotees. Indeed, I am not at all independent, because my devotees are completely devoid of material desires. I sit only within the cores of their hearts. What to speak of my devotees? Even the devotees of my devotees are very dear to me. O chaste women, as chaste women bring their gentle husbands under control by service, pure devotees who are equal to everyone and completely attached to me in the core of the heart, bring me under their full control. Bhagavatam 9.4, 63 and 66. Uddhava heard similar words from Sri Krishna. My dear Uddhava, neither Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Lord Sankarshan, the goddess of fortune, nor indeed my own self is as dear to me as you. Bhagavatam 11.14-15. Srila Sanatana Goswami comments that Sri Krishna, in this verse from the Bhagavatam, meant to make the general statement that no one else is as dear to him as his pure devotees. But because Krishna became so ecstatic thinking about the specific glories of his devotees, instead of saying, my devotee, he unintentionally said, you, Uddhava. Text 78. The Lord's divine personal form is the source of all the demigods, including me, and gives great pleasure to his devotees. But the Lord considers his own body worthless compared to the value of his devotees. Who is fit to praise the Lord's devotees? Commentary. The demigods headed by Shiva, Brahma, and Indra all originate from the creator of the universe, the Supreme Lord's Mahapurusha incarnation. That Mahapurusha form of Vishnu is a direct expansion of Lord Narayana. In another sense of the word yoni, Narayana himself is the shelter of all created and non-created beings. His personal form is superior, therefore, to the glorious worshipable forms of all the demigods. The Lord's all-attractive beauty delights his servants like Shesha and Garuda, who enjoy taking part in his pastimes. The opulence and sweetness of the Lord's Sri Murti cannot be completely described in words. However, in the opinion of the personality of Godhead himself, his own opulence and sweetness are unworthy of attention compared to the greatness of his pure devotees. Who can adequately glorify the unalloyed Vaishnavas? No one. 79. Moreover, among those countless devotees, Prahlad stands out as the example of perfection. The Lord himself has described him in this way. Prahlad's good fortune is inconceivable. Commentary. Prahlad is one of the rare Vaishnavas described in the previous verse, who have no trace of material motivation. The Supreme Lord cherishes such pure devotees more than his own self. What to speak of Brahma and other demigods? Furthermore, as the present tense states, as the present verse states, Prahlad's surrender is especially complete, conferring on him a devotional position superior to that of pure devotees such as Shesha and Garuda. His good fortune is unique among Vaishnavas, as the Lord has declared to him, "Those who follow your example will naturally become my pure devotees. You are the best example of my devotee, and others should follow in your footsteps." Bhagavatam 7, 10, 21. Text 80. When the Lord tore apart Hiranyakashipu, I, all the demigods, and the goddess Lakshmi witnessed with our own eyes the incomparable good fortune of Prahlad. Commentary. Lord Shiva, Brahma, and many other demigods and devotees headed by Lakshmi Devi and Garuda witnessed the killing of Hiranyakashipu by Lord Nrsimha. With such substantial first-hand evidence for the Lord's special kindness to Prahlad, no one should think that Prahlad's birth in a family of demons disqualified him from being a Vaishnava. The Lord's appearance for the sake of Prahlad is further described in the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 8, text 81. Lord Vishnu several times tried to offer him boons, but Prahlad refused to ask to be liberated. Instead, he chose only pure devotion. I bowed down before him. Commentary. This verse, quoted from the Narayana Vyuhastava, highlights the exclusiveness of Prahlad's devotion to the Supreme Lord. Lord Nrsimha tried hard to entice Prahlad with liberation, just to let others see Prahlad's resolve to stay fixed in pure devotion. The words punak punak, again and again, can be understood in several logical contexts. The idea may be, as given in this translation, that Lord Nrsimha offered Prahlad liberation several times. Or else it may be that Prahlad repeatedly asked for pure devotion. Or else Prahlad asked for pure devotion in his repeated future births. Prahlad expresses this last idea in his prayer to Lord Nrsimha, recorded by Parashara Muni in Sri Vishnu Purana 120:38. O Master, in all the thousands of births through which I may wander in this world, please let me have unfailing devotion to you, the infallible Supreme Lord. Prahlad's readiness to be born again thousands of times means he is not at all interested in liberation. Texts 82 and 83. My dear sage, Bali violated spiritual etiquette by disobeying the order of his spiritual master and failing to be true to his own words. Still, as we know, the Lord agreed to become the guard at Bali's door. Was that simply the fruit of Bali's insignificant charity? The Lord has granted protection. The Lord also granted protection to the wicked Bana. Was that the result of my offering the Lord prayers? Commentary. Because the personality of Godhead blessed Bali Maharaj by becoming his doorkeeper, someone might suggest that Bali received more mercy than Prahlad. But according to Lord Shiva, this is not true. Rather, Lord Vishnu favored Bali only because Bali was Prahlad's grandson. Fighting for the demons against the demigods, Bali overturned the law of the universe, set by Lord Brahma, that the demigods should rule heaven, the demons the subterranean Patala Loka. By invading heaven, usurping the throne of Indra, and awarding the posts of various demigods to demons, Bali violated this natural order. Bali also disobeyed specific instructions from his spiritual master, Shukracharya. Shukra warned Bali not to give anything to Vamanadev, even though Bali had offered Lord Vamana his choice of gifts in charity. By committing the worst possible crime of denying one's spiritual master's order, Bali earned Shukracharya's curse. Srila Shukadev Goswami describes this in the Bhagavatam 8:20-14. The spiritual master Shukracharya, inspired by the Supreme Lord, cursed his exalted disciple Bali Maharaj, who was so magnanimous and fixed in truth that instead of respecting the spiritual master's instructions, he wanted to disobey them. After being cursed for agreeing to give Lord Vamana what he had asked, Bali could not even provide the charity he had offered. Vamanadev covered the entire universe with only 2 steps, and no land remained on which he could place his third. Thus Bali's elegant words, promising charity, became an empty promise. He had told the Lord, O son of a Brahmana, it appears that you have come here to ask me for something. Therefore, whatever you want, you may take from me. O best of those who are worshipable, you may take from me a cow, gold, horses, elephants, chariots, a furnished house, prosperous villages, palatable food and drink, the daughter of a Brahmana for your wife, or whatever you desire. Bhagavatam 8:18-32. When Vamanadev submitted a request that seemed too modest, Bali laughed at him and said, O son of a Brahmana, Your instructions are as good as those of learned and elderly persons. Nonetheless, you are a boy, and your intelligence is insufficient. Thus, you are not very prudent in regard to your self-interest. Bhagavatam 8:19-8. And when Vamanadev insisted that he wanted nothing more than as much land as he could cover with 3 steps, Bali replied with confidence, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 8:19-28. When the Lord had thus spoken, Bali smiled and told him, "All right, take whatever you like." But when his promise proved impossible to fulfill, these proud words became a reason for Bali to be ashamed. It seems that Bali did not give away anything very important, just the 3 insignificant material worlds, and then his own body. Padam Tritiyam Kurushish Nime Nijam. Please place your 3rd lotus footstep on my head. Bhagavatam 8:22-2. Vamanadev's becoming Bali's doorkeeper could not have been the result of just this meager charity, Lord Shiva proposes. The Lord must have reciprocated with Bali in this way, because Bali's grandfather Prahlad was a great soul and a dear devotee of Vishnu. Bali did not deserve this benediction because he was a violator of the universal order, a transgressor of his guru's order, and a breaker of promises. We see in this world that as a general rule, in exchange for worthless trifles, nothing substantial can be obtained. Bali's petty charity, therefore, should not have purchased the personality of Godhead, who is the embodiment of eternal knowledge and bliss. That charity certainly could not have resulted in the Lord's entering Bali's household entourage. The only feasible explanation for Bali's good fortune is the intimate exchange of prema bhakti between Prahlad Maharaj and his worshipable Lord. In defense of Bali, someone might argue from the statements of Shastra that Prahlad had blessed Bali with the gift of pure devotion for the Lord, and on the strength of that devotion, he achieved the Lord. Another example is therefore given here, that of Banasura, a much more wicked person. Other than the Lord's compassion for Prahlad, there can be no reason for Bana's salvation. Not even Lord Shiva's intercession on Bana's behalf could have saved Bana's life when Krishna was about to kill him. Nor could Bana have achieved the perfection of having all but 4 of his arms removed. Nor would Lord Krishna have made Bana Lord Shiva's eternal associate. Banasura was so wicked that he even dared challenge Lord Shiva, his object of worship. O Lord Mahadev, I bow down to you, the spiritual master and controller of the worlds. You are like the heavenly tree that fulfills the desires of those whose desires are unfulfilled. Those 1,000 arms you bestowed upon me have become merely a heavy burden. Besides you, I can find no one in the 3 worlds worthy for me to fight. Bhagavatam 10:62, 5 and 6. Bana had also abandoned the devotion of Lord Vishnu that was traditional in his family. Instead, he became an enemy of the Vaishnavas, demigods, and brahmanas, like an ordinary demon. He arrested Lord Krishna's grandson, Aniruddha, fought against Krishna, and committed other offenses described in various Puranas. Lord Shiva here asks, was it because of my prayers that Sri Krishna excused Bana for all his nonsense? Of course not. Lord Shiva insists. Only because of Prahlad's pure devotion did Lord Krishna deliver Banasura. Offenses against Vaishnavas, such as those Bana committed, can be absolved only by the Vaishnava's mercy. It was by Prahlad's grace that his grandson Bali and great-grandson Bana were dealt with favorably by the Lord. The only reason the Lord pardoned them for their offenses and elevated them was to please Prahlad. What a commentary. All glories to Sanatana Goswami and all glories to Gopi Purandana Prabhu for writing such a wonderful, composing such a wonderful summary or paraphrase of Sanatana Goswami's commentary on this verse. So we've reached text 84. It's 8 o'clock. And I'm going to stop here. I know we're right in the middle of Shiva's glorification of Prahlad Maharaj, but duty calls. Hare Krishna. So if anyone has any glorifications or reflections or comments or discussion, please be our guest. Bear in mind that we have 10 minutes, please.
First is something from Avaduta Roy.
Hare Krishna, Avaduta Roy.
He says, Dear Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to your services. I think I read it in BB that devotees like Prahlad in the material world are more dear to Vishnu than the Vaikuntha-vasis and even Lakshmi herself, because the devotees in the material world, despite of all difficulties, are still devoted to the Lord. Is this only a glorification?
Well, we're going to find out the ultimate answer to that question towards the end of the first part of Brhad Bhagavatamrta. I don't want to give away the plot or the conclusion, but I will say this, that when Narada finally got to Krishna and asked him who was the best devotee that he had met, Lord Krishna told him, Narada, don't you understand? All of the devotees you met were my best devotees. They all have the power to deliver the whole universe. Because that's the nature of a pure devotee of Krishna. But there are different, at the same time, there are different gradations of devotees. And they are graded more on the degree of intimacy of their relationship with Krishna in a relationship, how to say this? There are different degrees of intimacy, even in personal relationships, even in family members. So the differences in elevation of devotees of pure devotees, rather, you can't really say who is higher and lower. There's a verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that says this directly, that when talking about pure Vaishnavas, pure devotees of Krishna, who have no desire other than pleasing Krishna, you cannot say who is higher and who is lower. This comes in the Adi Lila when the associates that we're going to hear about in the rest of in Chaitanya Charitamrita are delineated by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. And some of them are very intimate. Some of them seem to be just simple, plain, poor persons. But they were graded to be equal because of the affection that they had for Krishna and that Krishna had for them. That's the only way to understand this question. You can't understand it by a logical analysis. Hare Krishna.
The comments from Brhad Bhagavatamrta.
Haribol Braj.
He says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. I was just wondering about the ongoing praising of the devotees. This is clearly a good example of how devotees should treat each other and think of themselves.
Brajip Vallabha, that is perfectly true. And it's put in a way that I will leave it at that, because it's perfectly true.
And then a question from Vilas Manjari.
Yes.
She says, if time allows, could I ask a question from yesterday? Dear Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. I have a question about text 46. This verse describes how the Vaikuntha-vasis travel freely wherever they want, promoting the cause of the devotees and of the Lord's devotional service. In my mind, I have pictured that they are there, absorbed in loving service to the Lord, and we are here, absorbed in Maya. But the commentary describes how they are actively involved in the material world in many ways, including encouraging the descent of devotees into saintly families and rendering unseen help to the devotees' preaching. Are we to understand that they are aware of our plight and are helping to deliver conditioned jivas and are actively involved even today in the spreading of the Sankirtan mission?
Yes. We'll hear about that in the second part of the Brhad Bhagavatamrta, when Gopakumar goes to Vaikuntha, to the abode of liberation, and meets Lord Shiva there. And while they're talking, there's a party, a Sankirtan party, that comes from Vaikuntha planet and comes into their, past them, on their way to the material world. And they discuss with Gopakumar that the example of Lord's mercy is shown in them because they want to go and help. And then they point out in a distance, you see there's another party going into the material world. So there's millions of universes in the material world. We can't understand these things with our three-dimensional, time and space oriented material conceptions. But they do, the Vaikuntha do come to the material world, and they are invisible. They may take a form of just an ordinary person, or they may be there in their original forms but invisible to us, because we can't see them. Prabhupada once in the beginning, he did a program, and hardly anybody showed up. I think it was in New York. And the devotees were very disappointed. And Prabhupada said, oh no, you didn't see Narada? He was dancing in ecstasy and he was happy seeing the preaching going on. Hare Krishna.
Question from Brhad Bhagavatamrta. He says, in other planets, are these scriptures different, more expanded, and so on?
Yes. Yes, in the upper planetary systems, the number of verses in the Puranas are about 1 billion. But even that's just to give you an idea. But to give you an idea of how potent the Hare Krishna mantra is, if you chant without offense, it's all of those things are contained within the holy name of the Lord, the Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So at first, we take this on the authority of pure devotees, such as Srila Prabhupada and Sanatana Goswami. But the disciplic succession is always intact. It seems like it's broken sometimes, but then the Lord immediately repairs it or invigorates it. There's always somebody on the earth that is a pure devotee, in other words. Hare Krishna. We've got 2 minutes.
Next is a question from Avadutta Roy. He asks, what is the qualification of the devotees, that even they are very dear to the Supreme Lord?
That they have pure devotion for the devotees of the devotee. Hare Krishna.
A question from Vamsi Vilasi Das.
Mm-hmm.
He says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the reading. Shiva glorifies Vaikuntha devotees before Parvati mentions Lakshmi. Was he setting the scene for her to mention her to please her with Prahlad already in mind?
That we don't know. That would be guessing in the mind of, liberated souls, great souls. We can't speculate on the minds of great souls.
Then last is something from Jai Baladev.
Jai Baladev, Haribol.
He says, previously we've heard that Bali was glorified for rejecting his guru because he told him to not surrender to the Lord. But here this is described as a disqualification.
And both things are true. And that is the nature of pure devotional service. It's very difficult to understand because in one circumstance it may mean one thing, and in another circumstance it may mean another. But in the end of the day, it's all meant to bring one, elevate one to the state of pure, unalloyed devotion, in which relative concepts don't disturb our pure devotion, our pure faith. And with that, it's exactly 8:15. I thank you so much for these lovely questions and comments. And I feel completely unqualified to answer these questions. But by your mercy, because I did help to edit this book, so I'm fairly familiar. And actually, it had been a long time since I read it. And because of the nature of Kali Yuga, no matter how intimate we become with a literature, over time, if we don't revise it all the time, we forget. That's why it's very important to hear daily these books. And it's not as important to memorize everything or know everything, because we can't. Nobody in the Kali Yuga can. I mean, Jiva Goswami had the whole Bhagavatam in the palm of his hand, every single word of every single verse. So we cannot pray, hope to achieve that. That would be imitation. And he is one of the perfect examples of a Vaikuntha person who came to the world to deliver real Krishna Bhakti. And so many others in our line of disciplic succession. Our own Srila Prabhupada is on that level. Otherwise, how could he have made the whole world? Maybe he didn't make every single person in the world, but he distributed Krishna consciousness to the point where, it's known Krishna. When I was growing up in the 1950s in America, I had never heard of Krishna. Nothing. Never heard his name once. And I went to university, hadn't heard anything. It was only after that, when I met Srila Prabhupada, and just before that, did I know about Krishna. Anything about Krishna. So the kind of empowerment that is given to a devotee to do something like that, especially in the Kali Yuga, is just the evidence in itself that all of these things that we hear are true. Hare Krishna. Sri Brhad Bhagavatamrta ki jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. See you tomorrow night. Same time, same place, same topic. The Amrita, Bhagavatamrta, the creme of Vedic knowledge. Hare Krishna.